Well, welcome. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining me once more. The topic for today is the good woman, or a good woman. I have shared over the past few years, and particularly over the past year, I have provided a reminder series with regards to both relationships and dating, and the responsibilities both for men, to men, and the responsibilities for women and to women. In the sessions that I have done, you may have heard me talk about what men want from women. And I summarized what men want in general under three headings: sex, serenity, and servanthood. Now, in the general, that is all men want. There are several, you might say, palettes to those three core key requirements. Every man is different, but in the main, you can generalize our demands into three very basic things. And what I would like to do today is expand on that slightly. Let's get a few things on the table first. As a woman, you might be able to provide a man with sex, servanthood, and serenity. In other words, a peaceful environment. But it doesn't mean that he will regard you as a good woman. Generally speaking, good women are very rare. Any woman can take my teachings and apply said teachings and will get the outcomes. Very few women would be classified, despite being able to meet those terms, as good women. And so in today's session, I will take it a step further. There are good women and there is everybody else. And I would say that perhaps about 5% of women fall within the category of good women. These are rare and exceptional women. They've come from rare and exceptional backgrounds, but not necessarily the most pleasant or the most peaceful or the most educated of backgrounds. The point being that women generally, although we are products of our environment and experiences and our goals and our dreams, sometimes from a broken past and from a broken experience, we emerge as great people. A good woman is a woman who has a lot of the qualities that I will be describing. And I think this is very relevant because most women, especially women in the West, have been taught, have been raised, have been trained by other women, and seldom have they heard from a man describe what a woman should be and how they would classify a woman based on her overall qualities. In any case, I hope you take this conversation in good faith, take it peaceably, and if it helps you achieve your dreams, great. If it doesn't, of course you can discard it. And let me start today's session with the following, I guess, opening statements or positions. Firstly, a woman is meant to be a reflection of her man. Now, I know in the modern West, that's a difficult statement for women to hear or to accept. The West is built on the Judeo-Christian values. But whether you are and practice Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, one of the things that is consistent is that a woman's role is, and let me use a theological reference in this particular instance, a woman's role is to be a helpmeet to a man. And let me qualify that, because I have made a mistake in my terminology. I would substitute woman for wife, and also substitute man for husband. I should have made that clear. I apologize for that. And I will, in a few minutes, address two separate places that people normally find themselves. Not everyone is in the marketplace for a relationship. Some are, but many are, generally speaking, in a different place. They are simply looking for companionship, or just interaction, or just dating. So I should have made that clear. A wife's role is as a helpmeet to her husband, meaning you're there to provide a supporting and play a supporting role to the man. So for a woman to be seen as a good woman, a lot of the qualities that she should have are tied back to what the man or the husband would want. Let me start with the following. There is a burden of performance on men, irrespective of your nationality and race, and irrespective of your place of origin, birth, irrespective of where you reside by geographical latitudes. There's a burden of performance on men. We are, generally speaking, expected to provide, protect. We're expected to be the teachers, in other words, to be the priest, to profess our love, and to have the ability to have a purview of the future, create a vision, create a pathway for the family unit. That is what every man is expected to do. Now, it comes in different shades depending on your culture. So firstly, all of those expectations, the burden of performance on men can be so strong that most men fail even before they start. Now, every man has an ego, and here I begin the teaching of the qualities of a good woman. Connected to what we are expected to do as men is our ego. As men, a very fragile part of men. The first quality of a good woman is a woman who is able to protect a man's ego. A woman who can, in many ways, save him from himself. There are several reasons for that. Any woman who has interacted with men from an early age would have noticed that with boys, our ego is so fragile, our testosterone can be sometimes very high, and when that ego is threatened, we do things that we should not consider, things we should not, that are sometimes out of character, because we are, you might say, we feel vulnerable, and therefore our natural defenses is to protect our ego in whatever means and in whatever way we deem is acceptable. In most of the cases, our actions and our chosen method is the wrong one. So a good woman is one who is able to protect a man's ego. Now let me expand that into number two for a specific reason. Let me extract from the burden of performance of men three key expectations of men. The first is to earn. The second is to then provide. Most men earn, but not all of them provide. We expected to earn, to provide, and then to protect. Now, in the modern West, how we protect can be done in several ways. In the developing world, We do that with our physical abilities, your ability to fight, your ability perhaps to use your physical stature, your physical presence as a deterrent from any conflict or any thing that might actually cause harm to the woman. In the modern West, we've civilized and created a peaceful society, and another way of providing could be perhaps with resources. Rather than live in places that are rough, where you have to demonstrate your manhood physically, an option might be to live in a more affluent area. In London, for example, there are certain parts of London that are very known for being a place of wealth. There are places in London where there are also known, such areas are known, perhaps from a historical perspective, as a place of violence, civil unrest, antisocial behavior, and perhaps places where the police do not often frequent. So, protection can be done as a derivative of your ability to provide. So, a good woman is one who does not place too much burden, unnecessary and undue burden on her man, her husband, to provide. Now, let me qualify that statement slightly. It doesn't have to be her husband. It has to be whatever man is playing a significant role in her life. It could be her brother. It could be her father. It could be a husband. It could be a potential suitor. It could be a friend. A good woman is one who does not, well, firstly, protects his ego. And the protection of a man's ego is mostly done with her words. The ability to speak to the God in the man, to speak to the king in the man, to speak to the adult in the man, especially when he wants to behave like a child, like a kid. When he wants to go into activities that are not consistent with a rational decision. But she doesn't put too much burden on him to provide or protect or to earn. Now, make no mistake, I am not suggesting that a man should be absolved of his responsibility, which is to provide and protect. That should come as constant. But there are so many women these days, partly influenced by social media, where men, young boys, let me give you some statistics, for example. In the modern West, well, in the UK specifically, there's a crisis amongst young men. You know, young men below the age of 30 are going through an incredible amount of pressure. Most of them below 30. The numbers moving towards about 40% have not had any sexual encounter. Now, I'm not suggesting that should be the goal, but the point being that most of them have become, you might say, involuntarily celibate. And part of that is because they become unable to find comfort in the relationships that they would normally have found had they been born 30 years ago. The burden of performance, especially on younger men, is so high. Social media has created a world whereby young men as young as 20 and 30 are expected that they should be able to earn and provide at the same level as a man who is 40 or 50. A lot of them have withdrawn and therefore have become incels. A good woman is one who does not place too much burden, unnecessary burden, on a man's expectation or on the expectation of a man to provide, to protect, and to earn. For example, at 20, your earning ability is still very low. You generally should be earning close to as minimum wage a salary as possible. If you exceed that, then you're doing better than average. At 20, most people are either still in university or college, and therefore you don't have the skills. As you age and as you grow and get older and gain experience and become wiser, your earning ability increases. A good woman is one who understands, perhaps, for example, what the median income should be in whatever country of residence she finds herself. In the UK, it's £32,000, the median income. So a young man who is, say, 27, if he was earning about £28,000, that is a great salary. Yes, we have to adjust for certain particular locations, big cities, London, Manchester, Birmingham. But even in London, that is still a good salary. A good woman is one who doesn't place too much of a burden on him. At 25, 26, 27, it's not unusual that you do not live alone. Perhaps you cohabit with other people, you live in a 2-bedroom flat, you share the bills half, and then you save and invest. A good woman is one who doesn't expect him to have a house or live in a house and live alone. Secondly, a good woman is one who understands how not to put him in a place or position where he has to be forced to protect her without reason or cause. And by that, what I mean is she doesn't pick on other people or cause other people to want to stir up some form of animosity and therefore a fight. And she's more importantly able to calm down whatever could be a cause or reason for altercation. That's a good woman. Now, number 3 has to do with understanding that a man's desire to please a woman, whether that woman be his mother, a mistress, a girlfriend, a wife, a sister, our desire can be so strong that we will go into ventures, sometimes ill thought through, simply because we want to provide you with a lifestyle that we think you deserve. A good woman is one who doesn't cause a man to consider or attempt to or even begin ventures which are not safe, ventures which are not long-standing, ventures which are not morally right, ventures which deviate from the etiquettes and the ethics and the values that he should be founded upon as a man. A good woman is able to manage her, expectations, her requests, her desires, her appetites, and her tastes and preferences to ensure that he is not pushed over the edge. Many a times young boys will go into activities such as stealing, criminal behaviors, sometimes fraud, simply because of that burden to provide. The desire that he has to pick her up in a particular type of car, he has to live in a particular location, she needs a certain allowance, and therefore he goes over and above and beyond what he should do. Now, number 4 is that a good woman is one who is actually, in that regard, therefore, financially astute. Someone who is aware of the value of money, who is financially savvy, intelligent, someone who is smart. A woman's role is as a wealth protector. She's the one who protects the wealth of the family. One of the reasons for this is because for some reason, and this is how nature has had it for many years, and for many generations, women generally outlive men, and therefore, whatever we create with them as family, and whatever we live with for them at the end of our journey, needs to be able to be protected wisely. So, a good woman is one who understands money, understands the value of money, understands how to invest, save carefully, intelligently, understands how to sometimes diversify the family income or savings in such a way that she's able to continue to pass down whatever wealth has been earned by her husband, or whatever wealth is left to her and the kids by her husband. That is a good woman. Now, this brings me to number 5, which means she has to be wise. She has to be wise in her decision-making process and ability. And she has to have what I call good judgment. She has to have good understanding. And she has to have intelligence. Now, I should make it very clear, I'm not saying that she has to be educated. I think there are too many people these days who put too much of an emphasis on education. Intelligence and education are not synonymous. Yes, some level of intelligence comes as a result of educating yourself, but not always in the traditional sense. You can be street smart and business wise and savvy without going to Harvard or doing an MBA in finance. Some people just understand the basics, partly based on how they were trained. So a good woman is one who is intelligent. The reason that's important is because the quality and the intelligence of the children that come from women, the intelligence of kids, generally, one of the preconditions is the intelligence and the education of the mother. Intelligence being a more important criteria, not the father. The reason being that women are the ones who actually teach at an early age, who instill certain morals and values in the kids. They transmit culture, so they need to be wise. They need to be long-standing in their thought process. That's a good woman. Intelligent, discerning, has good judgment, has good understanding, isn't, I guess, influenced by schemes that sound too good to be true, but are attractive nonetheless. And number 7 is a good receiver. The giver and the receiver in a relationship play an interesting role. And let me speak to this from a man's perspective. When a gift is given to you, the woman, by a man, our joy comes from how the gift is received, how the gift is welcomed. Our joy does not come from the thank you that you express. So, irrespective of the gift that is given to you, you have to learn. A good woman is one who understands how to receive and is a good receiver of whatever gifts are bestowed on them. Now, you may have experienced this either in person or perhaps through other people's experiences. A young child wants a gift for a birthday present, and for some reason he receives a gift that is different to what he was hoping to get. You can read from his body language, his countenance, you can read from his mannerism, even without speaking, whether he was honoring in how he received the gift. Despite his disappointment, some kids are able to recognize the beauty of any gift while still hoping that they will get their ultimate gift. Some others unfortunately, have not been trained on how to receive. And therefore, their behavior is appalling and robs the giver of the joy of giving, and definitely ensures that whatever they gift in the future is not done from the right place, the right heart. So a good woman is one who is a good receiver. She receives whatever gifts are bestowed on her with awe, with gratitude, with humility, and she bestows praise on her man. That man can be a father, a brother, a lover, or a friend. Understanding how to receive is perhaps one of the most important qualities that a good woman has. How to receive people's presence, how to receive people's love, how to receive acts of service, how to receive gifts, how to receive praise and testimonies, sometimes how to receive nothing. Now, conversely, she has to be a good giver, a woman that's able to give with love and without any form of indication that there's a transaction taking place. I've often said, if you have to think about something with regards to gifting for more than a few seconds or minutes, you're not giving, you're trading. It's a transaction. For example, let's assume that I have a wristwatch that I do not use. And suddenly it comes into my mind, someone who needs a watch, either because they've been expressed that position, or because I have perhaps observed that they're not keeping time well, or that they would love a watch. If I give it to them very, you might say, impulsively, or without thinking, that is a gift. If I have to rationalize and think about whether they would accept it, how much I paid for the watch, how long I've used it, and what I may receive in return, that is trading, that is not giving. A good woman is one who understands how to give, gives of her time, gives of her love, gives of her patience, gives of her intelligence, gives freely, not just to her man, but to everyone who comes in contact with her. She's generous, that's the word. Generous in her giving. She's able to welcome people who will have no benefit to her, either financially, or even emotionally or mentally. But she's able to sow in their lives whatever she has, however little she has. And she can do it with love, with peace and joy. That is a good woman. And number 8, as I bring today's session to a close, remember when I started and I said that a woman's role in a man's life is to be a helpmeet, irrespective of the nature of the relationship, but particularly for intimate relationships, husband and a wife, she's a helpmeet. That role can still be available to other relationships, like a brother, someone who supports her brother, supports her father, supports her friend. But in relationships, specifically marriage or cohabitation, a good woman is one who represents her partner, her husband, in the right manner. Now, I'm going to use some form of theology slightly. I understand most people perhaps do not share the same faith, but there is a reference that shows itself several times in some of the books from ancient past, the Bible, for example, in which the storyteller says that whenever Jesus was asked, "Where is the Father? Show us the Father," he would reply, "Well, if you have seen me, then you have seen the Father." And the part of the reference related to the fact that for those of us who are part of the Commonwealth, whenever someone goes away to another place as an ambassador to our king's service. This is prior to the abolition of what we used to refer to as the monarchy and the British monarchy. Whenever one person represented the country, either as a British subject, the person was speaking with the power of the king. In other words, let's assume we had an ambassador who traveled to China, representing the king. Whilst in China, he was speaking with the authority of the king of Great Britain, although he was in a different land. In other words, the king had given him the power to address and speak to certain subjects, and therefore the power and the authority of the king went with him. Similarly, in a relationship, a good woman is one who represents her husband in all ventures, in all activities. So many a times I have met women on the streets and in several private and public settings, and I can tell you what I thought about her husband or the man in her life or her father or her brother or her boyfriend by her behavior. In many cases, she was a delightful experience, peaceful, gentle, full of humility, had an aura that was, I guess you might say, welcoming. And therefore you could simply say, well, whoever she represents, I'd like to meet him because he is a lucky man, whether that be the father, the husband, or the brother. I've also met women who, their temperament, their decorum, their mannerisms, their behavior, how they speak, was so despicable that even if you paid me, I would have preferred not to have met the man in her life. When women speak in a public setting or in private settings, they are simply a reflection of the man in their lives. Now, the same thing goes both ways. Men are supposed to be a reflection of the women who they pair bond with, or the women in their lives. I remember growing up, there were certain things and words that I could not use because it was not, I guess, a good representation of my father or my mother. You can hear me speak as a child and you could say, he seems like the son of X, or he seems like the son of Mrs. Y. We are all representations of our family unit. And so a good woman is one who represents her man beautifully well. Now let me conclude with perhaps one final item: a countenance. A women are generally expected, and a good woman is one who is inspirational. Many people think that the word inspirational, when used on women, has to do with her ability to motivate with her words the man in her life, her father. No. The inspiration comes from two words: in spirit. So being inspirational simply means that he is one in spirit with you. But that spiritual, you might say, uplift has to do with your countenance, your presence. And I'm going to expand this in two parts. One is actually how you dress, how you put yourself together. And the second is actually how you present yourself, whether there's a peaceful, loving, smiley disposition about you. I'll make a criticism. Perhaps it's not a general criticism and does not apply to every single one who falls within this demographics. But here is some observations. Perhaps I'll be careful about what I say. In certain parts of Europe, there are groups of women who are considered to be amongst the most beautiful in the world. Absolutely stunning in every regard, both body but also facially. Those who come from Eastern Europe, the Slavic countries and the Baltic countries, particularly the Slavic countries, or the Slavic states, are known for their beauty. Very, very unique facial features. You can look at the Russians, those from Czech Republic, Poland, Ukraine, and all the other old Slavic states, and even if you include the Baltic countries. Very attractive women, but particularly speaking, the Slavic countries, they have a much more harder resting face. Very beautiful, but their resting faces are such that they always seem as though they're unapproachable. It's quite hard, quite harsh. And many a times when I've interacted with people of that group, one of the things I've encouraged them to do is to have a welcoming disposition, someone who has a useful countenance, a peaceful, glowing countenance. Now, you could say that it goes back to so much suffering from the past. But a smile goes a long way. A peaceful disposition goes a long way. And women have to be taught, same as men, but we have to be taught how to be peaceful and have a countenance that is in our neutral state. Have a countenance and a disposition that is beautiful, is welcoming, is glowing. Now, I have also noticed that a lot of these women, especially from the Slavic states, are not aware. So when you bring it to their attention, or when you start conversing with them, you tend to see them come alive, and you can see their beauty. And if they could just simply learn how to, there's a Chinese saying that a person who does not know how to smile should not own or have a shop. The reason being is, as you encounter people, your energy radiates. And that energy, if it comes from a good place, a peaceful place, it can be so moving and powerful that people just want to be around your presence. That is the inspiration. Now, what this means is that, remember, we are reflecting our internal state. What we have on the outside is a mirror of what we are on the inside. So most of the time, when you feel stressed, you're radiating that, except you're very diligent in your body language. So a good woman is one who always maintains a peaceful internal state of consciousness, a loving internal state of consciousness. Doesn't delight in negativity, and therefore her resonance and her radiance is peace and beauty and love. Now, those are a number of items that are good qualities of a good woman. You might notice that when I started today's session, I talked about what men want from women: sex, serenity, and servanthood. The one aspect that I haven't spoken to you about today, which I should have from the start, should have been, a good woman is hardworking. She's not lazy. She's not doesn't give to gluttony. And she works both with her hands and her legs. This means she keeps herself in good shape. She's good at serving. And here is part of the reason. From a young age, a good woman is taught how to serve her father, serve her brothers, serve the family. If that is instilled long enough, it becomes part of her. So servanthood becomes a natural thing. She's very delighted to serve her man and his friends. Now, here is a good test for you, men, with regards to the women in your life, especially the ones you are intimate with. Send an invitation to your friends and judge and watch on how she serves your friends and you. But how the service begins before they arrive, it actually begins at the moment she understands that you will have visitors that she has to serve. A good woman is one who does it with love. Now, because she already has the stamina and the resilience of serving, it's not a burden to her. It's a joy for her to prepare a banquet for her husband or boyfriend or lover and his friends. She delights from the experience of harmony and fun and enjoyment that they enjoy. Some other women see it as a burden. A woman who only believes that she owes it to the man she is emotionally and physically and sexually involved with to serve him is not a good woman. Remember, the service has to go beyond you. It has to go to the kids. It has to go to your family. It has to go to your friends. It has to go to the community. Now, let me take a step back. I started today's session with 3 S's: sex, serenity, servanthood. Have you noticed that of the 10 items or 11 items that I mentioned today, none of them refer to sex? All of the things I talked about fall under 2 categories: serenity, which is peace and a peaceful ambience, and servanthood, which is her ability to serve her man, serve the God in her man, or the king in the man. Now, this simply means that a good woman, it has nothing to do with sex. Despite what we hear in the modern West, a lot of young girls are being raised to think that it's all about sex. Well, many of those women have not reached menopause. When they do, they realize actually life changes. The life expectancy of a woman is about 85 years in the UK. Menopause begins for some women before 40. That simply means from 18, call it to 40, you are at your prime of sexual peak. But then as menopause occurs, there'll be a change. There's a pivot. That this does not mean sex is not important, but it simply means as you have kids and go through the phase of kids, and if you have multiple kids and then go into menopause, sex is not the most important thing in your mind. But you can compensate with serenity and servanthood, so much so that it carries most of the performance requirements and satisfies your man. Now, I hope the qualities I've shared are useful. I hope you use these. Whether you are a man, use these as a checklist in vetting the women you bring into your life. And if you are a woman, use it as a way of seeing how you can improve how men experience you, but more importantly, how the man in your life, the man you have chosen, experiences you.